more importantly, and more to the point of this presentation, Burke is an entrepreneur who founded his own company, Geon Software. Geon Software, as you may know, is the manufacturer and marketer of some of the most popular business software in the world. And literally, through his products and through instructing at IBI, Burke has been instrumental in really helping hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people and businesses put structure around their dreams, raise money for their enterprises, and fulfill the purposes and goals of their business. So he's uniquely qualified to give you the inside track on inventing your business, and for many of you, reinventing your business. As you know, if you've been in business for a few years, you don't keep going on the momentum that you had when you started. It's useful to reinvent yourself and your business from time to time. I've been a personal coach for 15 years now. I've coached Burke for 3 years. I want to tell you something personal about him so that you can get more than his curriculum vitae or his resume, which is very extensive and powerful. In terms of his spirit and in terms of his visions, Burke really has the spirit of what we call an ace player. In the 3 years that he and I have been consulting, I have rarely seen a person who has the kind of passion for living, what you might call a lust for life. He also has a willingness to open himself up to think in new ways, to get rid of old ideas and strategies that don't work anymore. Please pay attention to that, because if you're reinventing yourself, you'll have to do that yourself. And to really reinvent his personal strategy so that he can get more out of his life, whether it's business or personal. Certainly. As you well know, as entrepreneurs, your business is not separate from you. It's a reflection of you. So to be with a man who's willing to open himself might be one of the most important things that you can do. In conversation after conversation for these last 3 years, Burke has talked and waxed eloquently about the power of entrepreneurs. He sees you and all entrepreneurs as the lifeblood of what's creative in our world today. Listen to what an ace player sounds like. Take in not just what he has to say to you about your business, but who he is as a human being. Because if you're reinventing yourself, or if you're just starting out new, that's something that you'll need to do. Please honor Burke and welcome him, Mr. Burke Franklin.
Thank you, Bill. This is Bill Lamond. He is a brilliant, brilliant coach. I met him through a workshop he did several years ago, and he's been coaching me, like he said, for 3 years. And there were things in my business that were just, it got to a place where I didn't know what to do. There weren't any more books I could read, no more courses I could take. I needed to do something internally differently. And as far as original thinking, I love original thinking. Bill is an original thinker, and he's written a new book. I think you're going to be hearing a lot about Bill Lamond, or a lot from Bill Lamond, in the near future, from a book he's written, a couple of books he's written, coaching he's doing, a lot of brilliant things he does. So if you are looking for coaching or feel the need to, I got to do something different personally, look for me to introduce you to Bill Lamond later on, or find Bill after the class. He's a genius. Anyway, let's go on with business plans. How many of you have a business plan? How many of you are writing a business plan? How many of you are avoiding writing a business plan? How many of you don't like writing business plans and or maybe aren't happy with the plan you have? How many of you... Come on. One thing I want to say about business planning, sometimes I think of it as it's a project from hell, because it's one of these necessary things you've got to do. It draws out if it's a good one, it's going to draw out every last piece of knowledge you've got about your business plan and your marketplace that, you're making really I think of it as a giant brochure to pitch your idea, your business to an investor. And I'm going to go into some slides here and I'll show you some information about investors that you need to know that will be very powerful in talking to them. So really what we're talking about is the thinking behind your business plan. I'm going to presume that you're going to use a software package probably, or something to write your business plan. Mine is called Biz Plan Builder. It's been out about 14 years. We're on revision 9. So this thing's been evolving, being revised. I've used it myself to raise money. I've raised $210,000 through an SBA loan. I know how to do that. I've gotten an $850,000 line of credit from Citibank. These people ask a lot of questions. And I've raised a significant amount of money from private investors. I've also raised money from my parents. That was probably the most difficult. Although they're the closest in, we'll talk a little bit about that later. So let's get on with this. Well, first, here's Geon. My company is called Geon. And what it means, I was reading a book, and it said, well, the ninja is the master of the martial arts. The Geon is the master of every art. And I thought, ooh, that's so cool. Because I was about 30 years old, and I was in a seminar, and I was saying, I'm not having any fun. I want to have some fun in work. I want to, have a good time. And they said back to me, well, what are you good at? What difference does that make? I mean, I want to have fun, Yeah, Burke, what are you good at? You don't understand. I want to have a good time. He said, no, Burke, you don't understand. What are you good at? And I thought, I think maybe they're trying to make a point that I should be listening to instead of trying to tell them what I think. So I realized I really wasn't good at anything. It was kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. I could sell a little bit, I could do this and that, but I really realized if you're really going to get somewhere, you've got to be really good at something. And so, of course, I found this book about, the master of all arts, and I thought, yeah, being the extremist that I am, I'll be good at everything, which is, of course, is impossible. But it's one of those Zen kind of things, if you could be the master of every art. So I named my company Geon. Anyway, let's talk about an early person who had no business plan, had an idea for a business. And I bring this guy up because if he can do it, you can do it. None of your excuses compare to what challenges Christopher Columbus faced in what he was doing. And he needed some shifts. He had an idea, just like you. How many of you have some kind of concept that, if it was fully implemented, would probably change the world? Cool. Okay. Now, just because you have that doesn't give you any more than 2 minutes at the breakfast, lunch, and dinner table to talk about it. Okay? Everybody here is going to change the world, so use your 2 minutes and then allow somebody else some time to save the world, okay? Okay, so there's a fundamental problem here. Now, I know most of you probably have some kind of premise that, if I could get this point across, then the investors would understand. Then the employees would understand. The customers would believe. But there's this fundamental paradigm that I've got to explain. Now, if you think there's anything tougher than explaining to people the fundamental fact that the Earth is flat, here's a guy who had to overcome that. So most things today are fairly obvious, but it's a matter of salesmanship and everything else you can come up with. Now, he had some problems, but he needed some basic things, and it was pretty obvious. It wasn't like, hey, I need a bunch of money to buy a bunch of esoteric stuff. I need some boats, because I'm going to get a bunch of guys, and we're going to go across the world, and we're going to discover a bunch of riches, and I'll share them with you. Okay? Now, it's interesting that of all people that financed him, it was a woman, where most investors today are men, but I don't know, she obviously had some vision, and she trusted him and liked him, and who knows. Now, you're also going to be... And I heard everybody here is so clean and pure thinking, and look where your minds go. Now, he also needed a management team. What kind of management team do you think was available to Christopher Columbus in 1490, whatever? MBAs, the best and the brightest. Where would you go to recruit these brilliant young souls to come work with you and trust your life to them? Bars. Great place to meet people. And I'm sure they were highly qualified, too. Okay, now we can also promise everybody riches. That's always seems to get everybody motivated. So this is a good thing. He's got this going for him. And of course, he had no biz plan builder software. So you have absolutely no excuses. I was going to take those away from you right away. I also want to talk about in business planning here this morning, first thing Monday morning, the business plan really, at the end of IBI, is kind of like the final exam. This is, you come out of here with the business plan. This is the structure for everything you're going to learn this week is going to end up in your business plan one way or the other. Mostly it's going to end up in your mind. So when you go to answer questions from investors or bankers or your parents, you'll be able to answer all the questions, and all of the information will be there, and you'll know where to put all this wonderful information in your document. What I also want to say about this brochure that you're writing is you're writing a brochure that you need to keep with. In other words, if you went and bought a car somewhere and the brochure said the car had 250 horsepower, and you find out later the car had 100 horsepower, what would you do? You'd be upset. So your investors are going to invest in you on basis of certain promises and expectations that they have based upon what you say in your business plan. So it is not a document that you take lightly. It's not a document that you just write, you sell them, you get the money, and then put this thing on the shelf and go off and do something else. I just want to put that in there. Okay. The other thing I want to say, I say bringing up the final exam. I remember learning to fly. My instructor took me out for my first instrument training lesson. You learn how to fly, and of course, then you get your license, and the instructor says, "Okay, now you're on your own. Now you're going to learn how to fly." I thought, "No, I already learned how to fly with you. I should know how to fly now." What do you mean I'm going to learn now? What's going to happen? But he took me out on the instrument training. The first thing he did is we went and shot an approach. It's called shooting an approach in airplane lingo, into Stockton in fog and clouds. And of course, we did it at night just to make it interesting. And so he said, "Let me take the airplane." He said, "Thank you." I put my hands in my lap and just stopped sweating, And he flew this beautiful instrument approach through a layer of clouds and fog right down. And when we came out of the fog, there was the runway lights in front of us. And I thought, wow, how'd you do that? Now, I'm watching the instruments. I knew how to fly the airplane. But there was a whole bunch of stuff he did along the way, that I realized what needed to be done. So I'm going to kind of give you that final approach here and show you what's going to be in this plan. So when you're writing your business plan, you're thinking about the management team section. You look at this thing, okay, who are the people who are reading this business plan? What are they looking for? I want to be sure that you have the right stuff in your head while you're writing this. You get your head on straight and come from the right place while you're writing this plan, so when someone reads it, it sings to them and they will invest in you, or they'll come work for you, or whatever. Your parents will still invite you home for Christmas. Anyway, this is the new Biz Plan Builder 2004, and in the past we had so many pictures on these packages of other people, and they all thought they were me. My mother said, "Well, why don't you put your picture on the box?" And so finally I did. It was cheaper too. You got to learn how to save money. You really want to dazzle investors with how frugal you are. You buy stuff on eBay. You're not spending a lot of money. You're not going out to buy a building for your business. You're going to lease the building, unless you're in the real estate business or something else. But how can you save money? But a little story on Biz Plan Builder, just to dwell on it a moment. It was an accidental business. I started out, it was in 1988. I'd been selling electronic components for Texas Instruments. I was the electronics buyer for the Sharper Image catalog. I later wrote advertising copy for the Sharper Image catalog. And I was doing all these different things. And one day somebody asked me if I would look at their business and look at their advertising and their brochures. And it was a friend of mine who had a software company in Santa Cruz, and it was something about strategic analysis for logic and timing. What does an engineer do with a mouthful like that? They come up with an acronym, and the acronym was SALT. The next thing I know, I saw an ad that said salt and had a big pile of salt. And by that time I saw his ad, I called him and I said, "Tom, we can't do this. You have a product for strategic analysis for logic and timing. Let me help you with your ads. Let me help you with your brochures." This is what I was doing. I was taking what I learned with the Sharper Image and was thinking, how could I apply this kind of like rapid-fire promotional stuff where you get, the Sharper Image catalog's got a little picture and 50 choice words, and that's all you got. And while I worked, another interesting thing too is we would have to go down to the phone room and take phone calls once a week for about an hour just to experience the customers. I got to tell you, if I had that job as my first job out of school as a sales guy, to go in and answer the phone, because the phone was just lit up. It was like the fish were jumping into the boat, And you just punch a flashing button, pick up the phone, "Hi," and before you could say anything else, they would say, "Yeah, I want that Swiss Army knife on page 47, American Express card number 3731, blah, blah, blah." You're like, whoa, hold it here. What a wonderful experience for a salesperson to get that. Anyway, so I had this experience that the Sharper Image was doing something right, and I wanted to share this with some other people. And here was my friend who had a definite problem. And I said, "Let me help you." And he said, "Well, let me take it a step further. I have a deal with Apple Computer. I need a business plan for these guys. They want to see," the technical guys had believed in his technology, but the the administrative people wanted to know about the company, the admin people wanted to know more about other things. They wanted to know about the whole deal because, when you go, like let's say you go buy a car, you want to know that car comes from a reputable company that knows how to build cars, that has service for the cars, all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, you're not going to touch it. And the same thing goes with buying technology. Anyway, long story short, we overhauled the business plan. He got the deal, and for some reason after that, people started calling me up and asking me if I could help them with business plans. I don't really know how that happened exactly. It's that same kind of phenomenon that happens. When you buy a new car, you don't see these cars anywhere, but then all of a sudden you buy this car, and you drive off the lot, and you see them everywhere. How'd that happen? So this is what was happening. People are calling me up, and I'm writing business plans. And one day I'm standing in the shower. I don't know about you. I stand in the shower and I start ranting and raving, and I start thinking, I start in my head thinking, and I'm under the water. I think if I see one more bad business plan, I'm going to hurt somebody, And so, what if I could just take, all the information that I've got, edit it together, put it together in a software disk. And this is all happening rapid fire while the water's running on me. I'm thinking, these moments of brilliance, you're drenching wet, And so I thought, I could take all this content, put it in a word processing document, take all the company names out of it, call it company, and then I could sell this to people. Whoa, that's the sound of one hand clapping. Anyway, so I did this, and I started running classified ads. You've seen the guys doing the infomercials late at night. All you got to do is run hundreds of classified ads all around the country, and you can sell all this great stuff. And I laugh when I see this guy, because I had about 30 different classifieds going, and the phone would ring, and you can imagine a little 1-inch classified. You can't say a whole lot. All you can say was, I think I said, business plan on diskette, pre-written text in Word, and then Visa, MC, Amex, and then my phone number. It's like all you could get in there. And people would call up, and they would call up at, from New York, they'd be all hot and bothered to do business at 8 in the morning. Well, it's 5 in the morning here, and I'm laying in my bed, and the phone would ring, and they'd call up and say, tell me about that business plan. You're kind of like, oh, my God. What I did is I developed a script, because I didn't really know how to explain it to people. I just ran the ads and to see what would happen. I didn't know if they would call. It was just, I wanted to do it cheap. Let's see, if they're interested in this thing, I didn't see it advertised anywhere else, so I figured I was the first one. And it was kind of like that Reese's peanut butter commercial where the kid with a chocolate bar comes around the corner and crashes into the kid with the peanut butter thing, and ooh, you got peanut butter on my chocolate. So it was this business plan software all of a sudden, concept, and I didn't know it would fly, but anyway, people were calling up. And so what I would do is, and this is something, I tell you this because it's useful to use it in your own business, is you take your own phone calls, explain your business to people. Every time someone looks at you and says, oh, I get it, whatever you just said, write that down. Because when someone says, oh, I understand, good. So what I did is I had a whole bunch of these little pithy statements that I had said at some point. I wrote them all down. I put them in a sequence, and I made myself a little phone script. I put them on a clipboard with an order form next to my bed. So when the phone rang at 4 or 5 in the morning, I was like, bing, whoa, $100. Pick up the phone. Hi, thank you for calling. And they'd say, well, could you... You'd wake up for $100, wouldn't you? So the phone would ring, I'd wake up, and they'd say, could you tell me about this business plan? I'd start reading my script. And about halfway through, they'd say, well, do you take a Visa card? Yes, I do. And I'd write down their card and all that information. And in those days, it was tough getting Visa, MasterCard, and American Express, because what they would say is, the bank would say, well, are you working out of your house? And you'd say, no. And are you mail order? Are you a mail order business? Of course not. And how tough to do this? Go, no. And shake your head. Anyway, fortunately, I had a friend who helped me sign up for these things, for the Visa, MasterCard, American Express. And that made a world of difference. And I would also say, go out and get Visa, MasterCard, American Express for your own business right now so you can sell product to people. I would almost go as far as to let them invest with a credit card, but I won't say, talk to the lawyers later. But you want to be able to accept money any way you can. Anyway, so I would take these orders, and one day, to make this long story shorter, I was laying in bed. I was answering the phone all morning long. I'd wake up, I'd turn the light on, and hi, And you have to just smile. All the rest of your body could be dead, but if you just smile. Notice, listen to my voice. I'll say this like this. Now I'll say this like this. Can you hear the difference in my voice? The only thing I did was I changed the shape of my face. That's all I did. I smiled. And if you don't have a whole lot going for you on the phone, because 7% of what people hear is your words, 35% or so are your actual tonality, how you say it, and the other 55, if that adds up, percent is your body and the body language. Okay, on the phone you don't have the body language. So anyway, I'd smile on the phone. Hi, thank you for calling, and they would buy the thing from me. And then that morning, I remember I was laying in bed looking at all the pieces of paper I had on the floor, and I had about $800 worth of sales on the floor before I got out of bed. And I thought, yes, I am in the software business. This is working. This is great. Because all I had to do was copy a disk and mail it to them. I'll get $100. It didn't cost me much to do this thing. And so I thought, A, this is great. B, I'm going to tell this story forever. But that was really a good sign of the start of this thing taking off, and that's how BizPlan Builder started. And of course, ever since then, we've added spreadsheets and modified it and refined it, used it ourselves in every application, and so that's BizPlan Builder. Anyway, there's lots of competitors. They suck. Oh, I'm way better. In fact, you should read the final business plans and compare them. It's really shocking. Anyway, this is a little Zen thing. When the teacher is ready, the students will appear. When the investor is ready, you'll appear. Anyway, let's talk about the thinking behind your plan. I really recommend if you're having trouble thinking about something and looking at a certain subject, I like to think of it as turning it around and looking through the other end of the telescope. Just flip it around and make it the opposite and see what comes of that. It's a very interesting, very simple process to do, and you can discover amazing things. So let's look at some of the obvious. What are you selling? What makes your company unique? What makes you successful? Who's your audience? What's the purpose of your plan? People wonder which section is the most important. And well, like this case with the Apple computer, my friend's deal, they had different people looking at different sections. So really, at the end of the day, every piece was important. I sold word processors for a while. You go in and you sell the secretaries on one aspect of the word processor. The office manager wants to hear a little something else. The CFO wants to understand, the financing of this thing. And then the president of the company wants to hear how great it's going to make the company. You're selling the same thing. You're selling just different facets of the whole thing, but you've got to be prepared for all those different angles. And so every part of your business plan counts, because you could be sitting there in front of investors, and one of them is going to be a marketing guy, and the marketing guy just wants to see how your marketing is going to be. And a finance guy will look at the numbers. And these people are amazing. How many of you are financial people who just look at numbers and just pull a number out of a sea of them? This guy's a financial genius here. Jay Winokur is a person to see about finance. I noticed not many people raised their hands. So I am blown away by guys who can look at a sea of numbers in a spreadsheet and say, how does that number relate to this one over here? Because it doesn't look like it adds up right. What? How do you know that? Anyway, they can do this, and most investors can't. So you need to be prepared. Let's talk about the final exam and the final exam here for a moment. And what you're really doing is you're selling your business. You're selling a piece of your business. They are buying your company. And so you want to value this thing. Come on, I smiled right at you. Take the picture. Anyway, let's give you one of the formulas they use. There's another formula that was used during the dot-com era where it's like, $10 million. We'll give you $1 million. We want 10% or so for your company. But one way is looking at this thing, and notice that in the model, the very first word is profit. You need to be showing a profit. So part of what your plan is going to show is you're making a case for why your business is going to succeed and that your business is indeed going to show a profit. Ideally, you want to show a profit sometime, as soon as possible. Let's say 3 years. That's a reasonable time frame, okay? You could also do this model in a 5-year model or any other model you want. But anyway, so let's say take your profit in 3 years and then times your price-earnings ratio, PE ratio. The average PE ratio for Dow Industrials or something like that right now is about 16. Now you're going to have to look for your own industry. This is a wonderful reason or excuse to take your banker out to lunch, get to know your banker. You want to take a look at their RMA numbers, Robert Morris Associate numbers. These are all the ratios about your industry or your industry close that bankers, lenders, investors will look at to gauge and calibrate your business to see, are you on track? So your banker would have these. You can probably get them from the banker for the price of lunch. And so one of those numbers is going to be your price-earnings ratio. Okay? And then over the formula is 1 plus the internal rate of return. You'll see later on that typically investors want probably a 40% rate of return. So it's 1 plus the internal rate of return to the third power. That 3 in the third power is the same as the profit in year 3, or year 3. So if you want to do this formula again, profit in year 5, 1 plus the IRR to the 5th power. So just write this formula down. This is not to be put in your business plan. You don't want to put the valuation in your business plan. However, the question, what do you think your business is worth, is going to come up always. But you don't want to negotiate that price in your plan. You do want to have a sense of how one might come up with a valuation of your business. And there's dozens of ways to come up with that, and this is one of them. But if you want to sound intelligent, you can say, well, based on our profit in year 3, and if you use the Harvard model, here's what we came up with. Then if you did some concrete comps of other businesses and other things, you can triangulate on some reasonable valuation for your business. And I'm doing this with a company right now, trying to pitch the value of my company and raising it as high as I can. But you can see the key ingredient here is that profit in year 3. You've got to be able to arrive at that number that's believable. Okay? Dwelling on this plenty. So let's look at where the money comes from. Most of you are going to spend your own money. Now, one thing I'll say about credit cards, out of one side of my mouth, I say credit cards is a childish way to finance a business. On the other hand, there are these credit card deals that if you can get $20,000 for no interest for 6 months, what's not to like? You know, get it. But now, notice that in 6 months, if you don't pay it off, that interest leaps to some amount. And in some of these cases, like for example, we bought some computers at Best Buy, wonderful deal. They have these things at Best Buy where you buy the computer and it's no money down, no interest, no payments, interest free for 24 months or whatever the deal is. In the fine print, and all these offers like that are going to have the fine print that says if you miss a payment by a minute or by the minimum amount at all ever during the span of this deal, all interest applies retroactive to day 1, and it goes at like 22 or the highest allowable by law. Okay, so play the game. Know where the boundaries are, miss a payment, pay all the interest. So I recommend, doing the electronic banking thing where the payments automatically get sent to them. You don't have to think about it, and it just goes out, and the minimum payment is always made. So credit cards are, a double-edged sword. Bank loan, if you have a startup, you're not going to get a bank loan on the business. It's going to be on your personal credit. And they'll likely want you to sign a personal guarantee, and they'll likely want you to mortgage your house. You never know. In a business loan, they typically want you to be in business 3 years, and you need to be showing a profit, and have good credit, and have collateral, and have cash flow, and have the capacity for this thing, and like you, and have a business plan, everything. Factoring. You know what factoring is? Factoring is that thing where you've got an invoice, and factoring works when you've got an invoice from a big company, like say Hewlett-Packard comes on and says, I'm going to buy $100,000 worth of stuff from you. Here's my order. You could take that invoice, sell it to what's called a factoring company. You don't take it to the bank. The bank's not going to give you an advance on an invoice, so they'll refer you to a factoring company. Now, factoring companies are great. Problem is, factoring is kind of like heroin. You take it, it's like you feel good, and it's great. I got some cash. This is really great. Except the interest is going to be probably, first of all, they're not going to give you the full $100,000 on the invoice. They're probably going to give you $50,000, $80,000 if it's a really good invoice. And what makes a better invoice than another one is that, like for example, we sell software to software distributors. So that software could come back to me if it doesn't sell. So it's not a solid receivable to them. Solid receivable would be selling equipment to IBM. They bought the equipment, they're going to keep it, no doubt about it. Okay, so factoring company will likely give you 80% on your invoice and retain the other 20% until they collect. Now they're going to charge you 5% per month. Is that a deal? 60% a year. Yeah, but if you're only holding the money, if you're only using the money for a couple of months by the time the invoice comes in and they get paid, it's not bad. And it's a good deal because maybe you need that money so desperately to buy some equipment or get a deal on something else. Of course, it's worth it. Again, the game to play, know the rules, and live with that. So it's a good thing. Friends and family. This is great. The good news about friends and family is that they know you. The bad news about friends and family is they know you. So, yeah, aren't you the kid that backed the truck into the house? And you want me to give you what, $100,000? No, we want to go on vacation and build a new garage. So you got to extract money from mom and dad. Vendors are important. I mean, a few years ago, we kind of got in a little trouble ourselves. I'd, gone a little too far, overextended myself, and now I needed to explain, how am I going to get out of this mess? It's kind of like, being a four-wheel drive and getting stuck in a more remote place. So the business plan was very, very useful for vendors because vendors wanted to see what my plan was for making this business go and succeed. It's very useful because you don't want vendors suddenly suing you to collect. You want them to understand you. They want them to play along. They want them to have faith in you that you're going to make this thing go. And venture capital, of course, gets the lion's share of the media attention. They put huge amounts of money in businesses, but they don't fund very many of them. We'll talk about VCs in a moment. So, and you have to really have a really good case for venture capital money. All of this kind of money is very, very expensive money as well. Let's go on here. So the audience for your plan, it's not just, this is sort of takes some of the sting out of this project, I got to write a business plan, is that you're going to have a number of places to use this thing. You're going to have this brochure. You can use it for a lot of stuff, and it will save you a lot of time. It will save you a lot of explaining and go a long way, because people really start to believe when it's in writing and planned out. It's really the bridge between this fantasy in your head and the reality of actually having the business. So investors, bankers. Now bankers, I'll say a little bit about bankers. You wonder, why do they want your firstborn? What's up with all the paperwork? Come on, I've got good credit. I can pay this thing back. What's up with you guys? Why is this so difficult? Well, look at it this way. The banks borrow money, typically, well, they've got your money in savings, but to do loans, let's say they borrow the money from the Fed, and typically their margin on the money is, they cost them about 2%. Okay? So the money they have to make, the profit they make on this, for example, you borrow $100,000 from these guys. $100,000 is the profit they make on $5 million worth of loans. So if they lose your $100,000 because you default, that means that's the profit on $5 million worth of other loans they've written. All just went up in smoke because they lost your loan. So they can't afford to lose any of it. And their deal is, as you know when you sign your checking account, is you can go in and write a check and get your money out anytime you want. That's their deal. They give you your money back. Now an investor, like either an angel investor or a venture capitalist who's using their own money or money from other investors who have money they know is at risk, they know they can lose that money. They have no agreement that they must pay it back. They say it's at risk. If we get a bunch of money back, we'll share it with you, but we don't have to give it back to you. So that's the difference. The banks are caught between a rock and a hard place, and they have to give the money back to the people who gave it to them. So that's why they're that way. Partners, these days, I don't know how many of you have ever been burned by working for a company that didn't make it, and you just spend all this time and money, and you think, oh man. But today, I would think you want to look at a company you're going to go work with, or anybody who's going to come work with you is going to want to see your plan to inspire. You want to have a good VP of whatever come work for you. If they're good, they're going to have many options. If you want them to choose you, your plan's going to be the thing that really sells them on what you're doing. Same thing with employees. Talked about vendors. Certainly anybody who's going to acquire your company, this is going to add a lot of value to your business in terms of what it's going to be worth, where it can go, what it's capable of, what the potential of the market is. So this is a wonderful brochure for buying it. And I would say most importantly, the plan is for yourself. Because what's going to happen is you're going to be talking to an investor somewhere, either or a banker, whatever, and you're going to be in front of them, they're going to be in front of you. The plan will be on the table, and they're going to ask you questions. And if you have to turn to page 28 to answer this question because you don't really know, you're going to have a problem. They're going to think, well, don't you know your business? This is a project, a process to teach you to be sure that you cover every base in your business. There's companies years ago that got in trouble. They had the whole business figured out, but they didn't know how to deliver that last 100 feet to the customer. Somehow they got like the phone thing, they got the phones up to the last 100 feet, but they couldn't get the phone company to connect the cable to the house. Dead in the water. So you've got to figure out the whole spectrum of your business and how this thing's going to work, how it's going to make money, all that stuff, and you've got to know it in your head. And you've got to have everybody on your team on the same page, in the same boat with you. All right, let's look at some VCs here. Now, some statistics on this. Typically, venture capitalists like to make, show an average earning of 18% a year on their investments, which is extraordinary by most circumstances. In 2002, they lost 18% across the board. That's ugly. It's embarrassing for them. They need to make up for it. And that's kind of what they're doing today. Now, they also get a ton of business plans every day. There's something to be said about this. I was on a panel for this school moot court business plan competition, and there was 7 people on our panel, and they were all venture capitalists, and of course, and there was me. I wasn't the VC. I was this guy with the software for business plans, and so I was invited to be on this panel just to add a little mix to it. And at one point, I had my little pile of business plans to review. We were all looking at the same pile, and one of them had little colored tabs, in the plan. And I thought, that's interesting, but it was the first plan I picked up because I figured, well, it's organized at least, and it looks pretty, and it was colorful, and the hotline. It's the president for me. Tell him, put George on hold. I asked the other venture capitalists on the panel, I said, guys, this may seem silly, but I'm just curious. How many of you guys, what do you guys think of these colored tabs and these business plans and this kind of stuff? And gal said, this does seem kind of silly, but I really like that. And I thought, important little factoid, I tell you, it's all the stuff that makes a difference. You want this to be easy to read. They got to be able to digest it. If they don't like it, if you have kids who don't like vegetables, there's nothing you can do to get them to eat them. So anyway, you got to make these tasty. The other thing, you've got to get it past someone who really doesn't have a whole lot of experience in the business. They've got certain parameters. We invest in heart valves. Okay, if that's all they invest in, the intern is told if it doesn't talk about heart valves in the first paragraph, out of here. So you've got to get it past the intern. You've got to be in their domain, whatever the venture capital company is an expert at. This is basic homework. Look at their website. They'll tell you. Okay. One of the big questions they always ask, they want to know how many people are there who have this problem that you can sell this product to? Is this a big enough? Could this business become big enough? Imagine eBay pitching Benchmark Capital about eBay. Hey, everybody in the world, we can help. This is like an electronic garage sale for everybody on the planet. That's a key selling point. Okay, so it's big. It can be very, very big. So you've got to look at ways that how can your business be big? How can you make it be big? How can you take on new audiences to make it big? The next thing is they really need to trust you. And I don't take this lightly because I was having lunch with a friend of mine who's a venture capitalist, and we were talking about this, and I said, what kind of due diligence do you do? And he says, well, we spend about 90% of our due diligence is on the team. And we can figure out if the business is viable. If it's in their domain, they'll know. They know what's missing, and they know what's needed. They know kind of how many people are. And they get a sense of this business could work in this domain. Now, who are the people they're going to write the check to make this business go? We want to know a little more about these people because they're the ones who write the checks and spend the money we give them to make this thing fly or not. Okay? I said, so what do you do? And he says, well, we look at their college backgrounds, we dig into their credit history, everything about the entire team. And I said, well, so what if you find something amiss? He said, they're done. Done. Not like, well, we'll investigate further. No, they're done. You're done. I said, well, so how many strikes do they get? Thinking, well, okay, I say I graduated from the University of California in 1979. And it turns out I graduated, in 1980, or I graduated, well, at least if I graduated in the ballpark there, it's probably okay. But let's say I didn't. Let's say I attended the University of California until 1979. And in my resume it says I graduated in 1979. I said, how many strikes do these guys get? Like if the CFO had that little slip, and the CEO, claimed he was an Eagle Scout, but he really only made it to tenderfoot. And I said, how many strikes do they get? And he says they get one. Well, they get none, actually. One strike, you're out. So be very, very, very accurate in what you put in your plan and what you put in your backgrounds and what you tell about yourselves. And be very, very accurate in who your team is around you. These people are not taking any chances these days. Not after getting hammered last year. That was a big, big wake-up call for everybody. Now they're not taking any chances. I think it's a beautiful thing because I was having some trouble because you can imagine people were getting millions of dollars on a 10-slide PowerPoint presentation. They didn't need no stinking business plan. But this has brought back a real reality check. And I want to pass that one on to you. The other thing, what I'm finding that they're doing is they're really investing in revenue. So a lot of these VCs want to invest in an ongoing company. It's almost like they're bankers who are looking at your business saying, do you have revenue? Are you in business? Are you doing this thing? Because part of what the deal here is, they can go back to the partners who invest in the venture capital fund and say, look, we've just invested in this company. We can sell this thing out, take it public, or get out of this thing in a couple of years with a respectable return on investment. And by investing in this revenue, they can show start on a better return on investment for their own portfolio. They've got to dig out of this hole. Otherwise, the investors, the venture capitalists, they're rated. There's all kinds of people which venture capital firm has brought back the highest return. So these guys are playing that kind of a game about who's the best. And if you're down at the bottom end of that, no one's going to invest in you. Why would they? So they've got to do better. So they're looking at deals that they can make a solid return on, and they're not taking very much risk. And some people say the venture has gone out of the venture capital business, but there's still a lot of guys playing the game. They know what they're doing. They're smarter than ever these days. The other thing I would say here too is look for a strategic investor. We had a company look at us who's a credit card company. and they need more products to sell to their customers. They think, well, we invest in you. Not only do we get the investment out of it, but we also have a company who's got products we can sell to our customers. So if you can find a strategic investor, someone who's got an interest in your product or service that would help their customers, that would be ideal too, because now you've got someone who's got an extra interest in what you're doing. Okay. Otherwise, these guys are going to go crazy. Let's look at angel investors for a moment. Some statistics. This is compiled by, I'll get at the end of it. Anyway, middle age, typically 49. Typically they're men. This is just statistical fact. Now, what I also want to point out about these two factoids, what does this say about type size in your business plan? I see a lot of guys wearing reading glasses. 10-point type doesn't do it. I've seen 9-point type in business plans. What are you, crazy? They're going to take one look at this plan and put their reading glass on, still can't read it. They're holding it out on their toes. Make this thing easy to read. Make it candy-coated, digestible. You want to make this product as easy to read. So, a couple of the things. So, typically an angel investor, they don't throw $5 and $10 million at businesses. They want to throw a small amount of money, 20 to 35K. A few will spend, upwards of $250,000, but the average is about $72,000. Kind of money looking at angels. 75% of them have graduate degrees. 17% have college degrees. Do you think you need to have a plan that sounds intelligent? Do you think you need to sound intelligent? Do you think someone's going to... Would you write a check to someone who is dumber than you? No. So these people aren't going to either. But look, this is what you're talking to. This is who you're talking to. It's got to sound good. It's got to make sense. It's got to track from start to finish. The numbers need to add up. You need to use the right language. I have a feeling you're going to get an earful on language later. 78% of them have 5+ years experience investing in companies. They've been here, done that. Imagine, back to the shopping for a car analogy. You know how it is. You're shopping for a car. You've probably been to a dozen car lots. You know what the deals are on cars. You know who's offering what kind of deal. You know who's got the best looking car on which lot. What do you think the salesman on each car lot knows about the deals going on in everybody else's lot? Nothing like what you know, because you're actively shopping. So these investors are seeing your deal come in the door. They've looked at 100 other different kinds of deals. You may be pitching something for cleaning fish, and he's looking at something that's a building product, and look at the gamut of stuff that you guys are offering here. So they're looking at all kinds of deals, all kinds of offers. So they have a lot of experience in this. So you need to look at a lot of deals yourself, and this is a wonderful opportunity this week to do that and look at each other's deals and look at what kind of offers they're making and what kind of offers can you make and how can you do this. So these people investing have a lot of experience. They also think much like a venture capitalist. They're not doing this because they're just nice people and want to write you a check because they like you and they care that you're saving the world. They've probably done their own thing to save the world. They sold the company that saved the world, and now they've got some cash. They're interested in some other companies that may be saving the world, but they want to get some money back on this thing. And they want to earn about 34%. That would go into your IRR formula for the Harvard model. That's what they're looking at. So they also typically want to invest in something nearby. They want to participate. They want to come by and help you. And quite frankly, a lot of them can provide a lot of really good help, especially if they know the domain, they know investors. Most of them have some kind of golden Rolodex, and that's a beautiful thing for you. So it's not just they're going to write you a check and go away. They're going to write you a check and hang around and help. And it's up to you to figure out how to put them to work. Call them up. What a lot of these guys do, they spend their time recruiting your management team. They're brilliant at it. They know lots of people. You're saying, I need a CFO. It's tough for you to find a CFO on your own, perhaps, but if you call up your angel, it probably has a dozen of them, even if it was a part-time person. Steve Power and Brian Hill had this survey. They have a website on finding capital. Anyway, let's look at your language. This has come to me courtesy of Bill Lamont, who introduced me this morning. He looked at my business plan the first time around and said, Burke, you got language in here that's, are you sure you want to spearhead? What are you saying to people? Are you going to capture customers? You look at what you're saying here. And also, I don't think business is war, and I've come to really believe this. And looking through my business plan, I was amazed at how my language, just like everybody else, we're going to spearhead into that marketplace. We're going to capture some customers. And then we're going to thrust into that marketplace, and business is war. There are investors who are attracted to that language. And there are, they like this. This is the way they think. Now, what happens if your business gets into a little bit of trouble, or you need something more from this investor? How do they treat you? There you go. You get speared, spearheaded. You're captured, thrusted, put you out of their misery, sell you off to a glue factory. That's right. You're done. So I think there's, in my experience, there's a lot of very, very, very nice people in the world with lots and lots and lots of money. And you could be sitting next to one of them right now. And they may even be offended by this kind of language in a business plan or even in your thinking. And so I would deeply consider, surgically removing this thinking from yourself and from your plans and everything you do. It's just, you just don't need to go here anymore. Okay, let's go on with professional plan writers. I know a bunch of them. We refer to them on our website all the time. And so what I want to say is, really, to help the professional plan writers do the best job they can for you, you've got to do your homework. You can't expect these guys to do all the logistical planning and figuring it out from scratch. You're now paying them to learn on your dime. So you give them a draft. They know what investors want. They know investors. They know how to write this thing. They know how to make it make sense. They'll have they won't have such the close emotional attachment to it that you'll have, and they'll be able to really make a contribution to the quality of your plan, but help them out. But at the end of the day, you've got to remember it is your plan. I had a professional plan writer working on my own plan, in fact, because I realized I was too close to it. Here I am, like, the king of business plans, so to speak, we've sold 800,000 of these things, and it's worked very, very well. So here I am writing my own business plan, thinking, oh God, this has got to be really good, because the expectations on me and my own business plan are going to be way up there. So I hired a guy to help me. In the meantime, he's working on my business plan, and he tries to pitch me on some kind of credit card deal he had going with somebody else and put it in my plan. No, this is my plan. I'm not pitching that product. We're not going there. So you really have to maintain what you're doing. And at the end of the day, when you're in front of the investor, even if you take the consultant with you, which is often advisable, the investor is going to look at you because you're the one they're writing the check to. This is personal, okay? Even though it is business. So let's talk about the executive summary. This gets a lot of attention, and we'll talk about it first, even though you really should write it last. And people often wonder, how do you customize this business plan for a particular audience? Because you may be talking to a venture capitalist one day who's got a specific interest in a certain way of doing business, a certain domain they're interested in. The next day you're talking to an angel who's really interested in your product and has a different take on it. You don't need to adjust your entire business plan to accommodate that. You can do it all in the cover letter. We give you half a dozen samples of cover letters you can use, but customize the cover letter. And of course, use that over and over again. I remember when I first had BizPlan Builder, I was bragging to this, I was telling this venture capitalist in our neighborhood, I said, yeah, I got this business plan software, it's so great. And of course, what he asked is, well, can you give some software that'll squish everything down to just 2 pages for me? Because they don't have time to read these things. What you're really looking at here is you got like an ad you're writing. Now, what I want to say also is that the first paragraph of your business plan, of your executive summary, in fact, the first paragraph is the executive summary of the executive summary. So the first paragraph better come out and grab them with who you are, what you got, what the problem is you're solving, how many people are in the world that have it, and just boom, that's really the ticket on this. And I think I credit Jay Winokur with coming up with that one, that it was our financial guy in the room here who pointed that out. So the first paragraph is your executive summary, the executive summary. You've got to get people interested right off the bat. It's like a good headline. So let's go on with this. You need to talk about the business model. How does this company make money? How many of you are familiar with Public Storage? The company is Public Storage. You know what their business model is? Rent garage space and put your junk in it, right? Well, I happen to have a friend of our family who is in real estate acquisition for Public Storage. And that's their business model, but that's only like the iceberg part. The tip of the iceberg part. The iceberg part really is real estate. His job was to go out and locate prime land that was in the direction of urban sprawl. Okay? And they would buy land for public storage and put it there. And they put up these cheap cinder block buildings, paint the garage doors orange, rent them out for storage space. And then a few years, and this would pay the mortgage payments on the land they bought. So then a few years later, this $100,000 piece of land would be worth $100 million because someone wants to come along and put a high-rise on it. What do they do with the storage? Send you a letter, gee, you got to move your stuff, bulldoze this thing, and then sell it to somebody else and make a fortune on the real estate. So really what the whole model was about was acquiring real estate that they could sell later, but using something to pay the cash flow in the meantime. Pretty good, huh? Of course, it turns out at the end of the day they're probably making more money now in the storage, but so now they have a high-class problem. Okay, but think about your business model and how can you build maybe a 1-2 punch into your business plan that might have a kind of a back-end benefit of this. And also think about the company that you're building here. The company is a product. So you can sell this company at the end of the day. It's not just the thing you're selling all day long. Okay. Now, what I said earlier is you want to write your executive summary last because you're going to go through the entire business plan. You're going to find a lot of stuff to do, a lot of stuff to think about. And there'll be a lot of really key points, a lot of interesting things you can do that you want to highlight. But out of that, you're going to take the choice stuff and put it in the executive summary. I'll just speed up here a little bit. So let's look at some of the words about your business. And there's a bunch of things that I put under the heading of purpose. And I want to differentiate what some of them mean, just the way I want to say it. So, vision. Picture Walt Disney. He's down there in Orange County. He's looking out at an orange grove. This is back in the early, I think, 60s or 50s it was. And there's this orange grove, right? And there's Walt saying, okay, imagine this. Right in the middle, there's this big Matterhorn-like mountain with this bobsled thing going through it. And then we're going to have Frontierland and Tomorrowland and Fantasyland. There's going to be Main Street where Mickey's going to have a bunch of lights on him. He's going to walk up and down and grab kids. There's going to be a monorail going around this thing, big hotel and a giant parking lot. What do you think? You know, and 600 people that he pitched it to thought he was whacked. 30-something people said, I'll write you a check. Now, can you imagine pitching this thing 600 times? And saying, okay, look at the oranges. Man, there's a Matterhorn here. He had a drawing of it, I'm sure, you know. But to pitch the thing 600 times. Colonel Sanders pitched his vision of fried chicken 1,017 times. What saved him was the fact that he could eat the chicken after he cooked the demo. Now the mission, let's talk about mission a second. The mission I differentiate from objectives is, the mission is what do you do for the customers? Have you ever walked into like a car dealership and it says mission over the doorway and it says our mission is to be the most profitable car dealership on the planet? What does that tell you, the car buyer? Maybe the prices are a little higher here, you know? What's wrong with that picture? So the mission, I think, is something you want to publish for public consumption, your customers to see. Our mission is to be the most respected car dealership on the block with the best prices and the best service on the best cars you can find anywhere. Now, if I was a customer, I think, okay, this is what I want to hear. Now, out of the other side of your mouth might be your objectives that you show your investors. Our objective is to be the most profitable, money-making car dealer on the planet. And that's what they want to hear. Now, they couldn't both go together, but it's just, you know, listen to the audience you're talking to and how this makes sense to them. Okay? Now, the strategy, of course, is how are you going to get there from here? Got this grand vision. Okay, Walt, how are you going to build this thing, you know, and make this Disneyland happen? So a lot of you, the strategy is kind of the high level. The tactical stuff is breaking the strategies down into bite-sized pieces. Goals is simply pretty much putting dates on those. Now, what I want to say about goal setting, which is a big distinction I've made that's helped me actually achieve some goals, because I would write down goals for years. I'd hear these guys in the tapes and the books, you've got to write your goals down, write the goals down. And I had more lists of goals written down, and all it was at the end of the day was a list of stuff I didn't do, stuff that wasn't happening. I mean, how many years, I got my pilot's license, 10 years ago, and I was thinking, how many years before that, for the 20 years prior to that, I would write down this year, coming up January, I'd write down this year, I'd write my goals down. I'm going to get my pilot's license by the end of the year. Every year I'd write that down. Yet every time I heard one of these professional speakers get up and talk, you got to write down your goals. Oh, goal setting. Slap one of these guys. What I found, I haven't got the businesses war out of my head yet, but anyway. That's why I studied martial arts. I studied Taekwondo for about 12 years. I figured, I just got to get in the ring with somebody, And I wrote a book called Business Black Belt. I discovered a lot, actually, in martial arts about, I find that black belts are probably some of the mellowest people because they don't have to fight. They can just stand there and take it all day long, just make one wrong move and you're dead. But there's a tremendous confidence there in that, and it also relieves a lot of frustration. What was I talking about? Goal setting. Yeah, I wanted to be a black belt for a long time too, and that takes a long. You don't just walk in and you just sign up one day and you're a black belt. You know, it takes 5 years, and you got to get up after. You know, you get knocked down in class, you got to get up and think, why was I doing that? Oh yeah, I want to get a black belt. You know, and come back the next day. You know, and it's tough to do. You know, especially I got to tell you, the worst guys to get in the ring with are the guys with gray belts. A gray belt is a worn black belt. You step in the ring with a guy with a gray belt on, you think, okay, all the visioning, all the stuff you've ever learned about success and winning and visioning and feeling, man, you better bring it out with you, you're going to die. So, anyway, and what got me into Taekwondo, I finally drove by the guy's karate school, drove the car into the parking lot, walked in and said, how do I sign up? So to me, what I learned about goal setting, and the same thing about flying, I wrote on my list of things to do, sign up for flying lessons by Friday. Sign up for karate class by Friday. Not go get a black belt in 5 years. See, you sign up for karate class and then be determined to go 2 or 3 days a week for as long as it takes, you're going to get a black belt. I guarantee you. But the caveat in there is you got to go 2 or 3 days a week consistently and keep going and take the test. Take your beating and come back. You know? And one thing I love about it, you know, you're in there, you're fighting, I blocked him, bam! You know, and you think, you know, you're on the floor, but I blocked it, really. I really did. I blocked it. No, you didn't. You can't BS your way through this. This isn't college, you know? You can't BS your way through flying either. Yeah, they say flying is very, what is it? It's inherently safe. It's just unforgiving of mistakes. So, and then a big, hairy, audacious goal. This comes from the book Built to Last. And what they did is they studied a bunch of companies, and they said, what is it about a General Electric or Ford Motor Company that, Ford Motor Company had to somewhere transcend Henry Ford. I mean, Henry could run this thing for a while with however he ran it, and then he croaks, and then what? Right? So, but the company keeps going. General Electric. So it's got to survive numbers of CEOs. It can't be about the charisma of the leader. It's got to be about something, the structure of the company. What can you build into your company that would make it last no matter what? Some of the criteria. So the one I pick out here is the big, hairy, audacious goal, they call it. And that is, for example, Coca-Cola's goal, a big, hairy, audacious goal, is to put a Coke within reach of every person on the planet. You think, wow. B, they could do that. C, I can imagine how that would inspire people at Coca-Cola to do that. But what they discovered at Coke was they could advertise like crazy against Pepsi and compete head-to-head and go at it, but it didn't do anything for sales. What they discovered is the more distribution points they opened up in places, the more Coke they sold. And I was in Africa a few years ago, and you drive down a road in Africa, and you will see signs, for Arusha, Tanzania would have big Coca-Cola sign over it, So Coke is sponsoring town signs, and they got signs up everywhere. They got Coke there, and everybody knows it. So they're serious about putting Coke out all over the place. Now, a negative one I would say that I would guard against, because you may hear something like this. A negative one, I call it negative, is the one Komatsu had, which is to surround Caterpillar. I wouldn't want my goals to be based upon somebody else's behavior. I would spar with these guys in martial arts, and if I start fighting them on their terms, the way they're fighting, I'm toast. And even in flying airplanes, the pilot in command is in charge. Air traffic control can say turn right 20 degrees and you go negative. Now, if there's a 747 coming at you, you've got a problem. They're doing you a favor by advising you to turn 20 degrees, but nevertheless, you are in command of that aircraft. So you want to be in command of your own business. You want to have a goal that's kind of like, in this case, a little over the horizon. You can imagine Coca-Cola employees thinking, wow, how are we going to do that? We could probably do that. It might take a few years, but I get the point. We need to get Coke out there closer to people. So everybody is focused on doing something like that. So if you have like this overarching goal, I would like my big, hairy, audacious goal, and I update it from time to time, is to have, I said years ago, I want to help support 1 million people to be successful in business by the year 2000. I think we achieved that. Now, I wish I'd sold that many software packages. I think a few of them might have gotten handed around a little bit, but that's okay. They come back and I'm making a lot of money in updates these days. It's a beautiful thing. But, at some point, one of my goals is to support, 100 million people succeeding in businesses. I could take it a step further and say, like, for example, right now I've got my product being worked on by some engineers in Israel. What do you think goes through my mind when Palestinians drive a truck bomb through some office building in a neighborhood? No, not my engineers. I need them. Now, if we were all doing business all over the place, you be careful. Don't bomb that place. I got some customers over there, So I could see helping people run businesses everywhere. And of course, I want everybody, I look at a picture of the globe, and my vision is, all the wires coming into my website with credit cards coming into that thing is how I want that to work. So let's go on here. I'm about to say you can invest in my company with Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. Okay, so the company overview is how is it structured. You're going to get plenty of information on structure here. History, it's your own business. You can figure that out. The org chart, sometimes you want to put an org chart in, sometimes you don't. Typically, if it's a startup or you don't have a lot of people, it's going to look like you're missing more people than you have. That might not look good, but you might want to bring your org chart with you to an investor meeting to say, here's a bunch of people I want to hire. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's who I'm going to work with. Like that. So, but you'll be along with that org chart to give any explanation with it. And that really goes with other information that you really feel like the plan can pitch a lot of what I'm doing and explain it and lay the groundwork. Certain things requires me to come along and explain. So think about that. How is your business financed? Where are you now? What have you got? And what I also say, in the words of Henry Ford is, how can you hustle while you wait? Because you're going to be pitching investors, and between pitching investors, you can be getting incorporated. You can be doing your capital compliance paperwork. You can be working on your business plan. You could be finding a deal on renting office space by doing a trade with the landlords. You could be doing lots of stuff to add value in your business, some attractive value in your business that you could be doing right now that you can use. Okay, so, and this present situation is something you'll be updating constantly because investors are going to know, well, what do we got so far? Got a patent? Trademarks? What about a prototype? How far are you? What have we got to work with right now? Where are we leaping off from? Management team. There's a saying in investors about investing in companies, management. You can take a B project with an A management team, and it's a better deal for investors than an A project with a B management team. So choose your people carefully. I would say, I don't bet if Willie Shoemaker could ride a donkey around and win a horse race, but I bet people would bet on him. The other thing you want to talk about in your business, and don't shy away from this, is why are you in this? So if you've invented some kind of medicine or some kind of machine that prevents brain tumors because your mother died of a brain tumor, it shows an investor, somebody that you've got a little more interest in this business than just the money. That's a helpful thing. Now, you're going to stay with us and make it go and make it return and make it succeed because, darn it, my mom died of a brain tumor and I don't ever want to see that happen again because, it's a real problem. Doctors didn't handle it. She died and I miss my mommy and damn it, if I help people with brain tumors somehow psychologically, I think I can bring my mother back to life, whatever. But, this is something that you are personally driven to achieve. I remember reading Popular Science and Popular Mechanics as a kid, and I, to this day, wonder where is the 300 mile per gallon carburetor? I would like the person who comes up with it, I would give them the business plan. I know, I want their $100. Get the business plan. But that's the person I want to help succeed is because I want them to succeed building the business with the 100 mile per gallon carburetor. I see all this cool stuff, and all you guys saving the world. If the 50 of you that put your hands up to save the world did that, I'm thinking, whoa, we helped that happen. Because I've worked for a lot of companies where, the marketing stunk, or they had something great, but they just didn't know how to sell it, or something went wrong, or you go to a restaurant and you're thinking, you love this restaurant, but it's out of business. Why? Something went wrong. So that's kind of my personal interest. Like, what's a nice guy like me doing a business like this? I'm also saving up for a jet. Anyway, the other thing is, what if something happens to the founder? This is why you want to have a team. A team is very important. Years ago, there was a company called Eagle Computer. Some of you may have remembered it. Went public. CEO was suddenly worth $41 million on paper. Now, when you go public, just in case you didn't know, you need to go out and buy a Ferrari right away. You need to. You must. Anyway, so he goes out and he buys his Ferrari, has a few drinks, flies the Ferrari off the road, wraps it around a tree. He's history. Company goes away. Big lesson for investors. If something happens to the key people, the investment's gone. Now it brings up key person insurance. You might say we have key person insurance. We're applying for key person insurance. We will name the investors as a beneficiary of the key person insurance. That's nice. It's one of those little bullet points that's in your little magic trick bag there of stuff that just makes investors feel like, you're thinking. You're thinking about, you're taking care of me. You're protecting my investment. You're not just smoking crack with this business plan. You're actually, thinking it through and thinking. You've got to think about your investors. In fact, with your investors, your mantra is, I'm going to pay you back first. You get paid back first. You will get your principal back as soon as possible. Any variation of that mantra, when you're talking, just kind of have that, kind of running in background in your little mental computer there where you're talking to these people. Because you want to have them feeling that, you're taking them seriously and you respect the money. I remember growing up and hearing people talk about, oh yeah, that guy's got so much money, he doesn't care. Please. I found out when I started making more money, the more money I made, the cheaper I got. The more deals I'm looking for better deals. And I find that people with money, they want a deal that's got to be good. They're cheap. Not cheap in a bad way, but, you better respect their money as much or more than they do. Because they do respect the money. Nobody's got too much that they don't care. The other thing about diversified skills, I would say, I was on this panel for this business plan class, and out of some school in the South were these guys pitching a golf thing. It was like a golf, website for golfers. And they were a bunch of guys, probably 30-something, white boys, blonde hair, khaki pants, golf shirt, They look just like me. They all lined up there. Hi, we're pitching this business plan thing, And I'm the one who points out, like, how come, your business is managed by like 5 white boys, all look alike like white boys? This is when Tiger Woods is starting to, make some serious money in the golf circuit. It's like, hello, somebody new in the game here, And what about the women? There's half a world of people that aren't on your management team. And then last time I checked, most people playing golf are a little older than me. So what about some of them? And I'm not talking lip service or window dressing. I'm talking about people who know what they're doing and have some diversity on your management team, or at least have a board of directors or board of advisors with some of these people in there. So you represent the market and have some close-in personal attention from people who know what they're talking about and represent different cultures in your business. And I remember we were developing or working on our web version of our products, and I sat there in a room full of people. It was a guy from Persia. It was a guy from Indonesia. There was a couple of white boys. There was me. There was no women. Now, can you imagine what a bunch of guys are going to do with a website to attract women business owners? Let's make the background pink, and we'll put some big fluffy letters in there. No, this isn't going to happen. No. Before we go any further in this meeting, I want you to go round up 2 engineers right now who are women and bring them in here, and let's continue. And it makes a world of difference. So you can't fake this. The other thing, too, is the same group of guys, they were missing a CFO. And so, which is fine. They didn't have a complete team. And we looked at their resume list of people on the team, and they had, CFO was missing. And I said, so, what are you guys going to do about the CFO? And I wasn't witch hunting or anything. I was just like, what about the CFO? And the CEO steps in and says, I have a degree in accounting. I can do CFO. Wrong answer. They should have said, you're right, we don't have a CFO. We are looking for a CFO. The qualifications in a CFO we're looking for, and perhaps you can help us find one, would be this, and that. They acknowledged that it was there. They didn't try to fake it and cover it up. Don't we hate covering stuff up? Don't you hate it when someone tries to fake it? And everybody sees it. You go, no. So they lost a lot of points right there. I looked back and forth on the panel, and the VCs were like, God. Wrong answer. So it's okay not to have all the people. It's okay to say we're looking for them, but these are our criteria. This is what we're looking for. And, in the words of a good salesperson, can you help me? I had a salesperson working for me, and she would take phone calls from people calling and asking about the product, and they'd ask questions, and she would answer them the best she could. And then there'd be this silence, like they didn't know what else to ask, and she didn't know what else to tell them. but she had the wherewithal to say, would you like to use a Visa, MasterCard, or American Express? And she got the sale 90% of the time. So at the end of the day, when the silence is, would you like to write me a check? Would you like to invest in this company? I hate the sales pitch of, would you like to make an appointment tomorrow morning or the following afternoon, and have this choice? I've done I've been to all these sales school things, and I find most of it really frighteningly annoying. I like the question, would you like to buy this car right now? And the person can say, you know what, no, I'm thinking about it. And then you just, okay, good. But at least I love the yes or no question because it just cuts to the chase right now. And you've got to practice. You'll get some chance later on, asking, would you invest $1 million in my business? And every time I'm at the bank and they say, thank you, Mr. Franklin, is there anything else we can help you with? I say, would you give me $1 million? One of these days, I'm hoping, Now, all of this, what this whole exercise is about, is you are demonstrating that the money is better off in your hands than it is in the investor's bank account. They want to give you the money right away because you're going to go do something intelligent with it, because you have intelligent people who are going to build a business that's going to become eBay, where they put $5 million in eBay, and when it went public, that $5 million was worth what? $5 billion. That's a big return on investment. Why did it happen? Well, the people knew what they were doing. So you're demonstrating that you know so well what you're doing. You've got this thing so wired, but not so wired as so wound up tight and anal that you can't adjust it along the way. That's where the people come in. They help you, make this thing work and be flexible. Nevertheless, you've got a plan. All of this is also demonstrating to the investors that they are not going to need to step in and take over for you. That they're not thinking, this is going to go okay, but it's headed for disaster. You want to show that you can really make this thing go and there's no hiccups in it. The other thing I'll point out about management, this is from my own personal archives. I'll write another book about it. I wrote a book called Business Black Belt, by the way, which is like all my ravings about stuff I've learned and lessons in it, and some of the philosophical things you could take from it and learn. It's included with BizPlan Builder, by the way. But the thing I discovered is I'm not running a clinic, although I made the mistake and was running a clinic. In other words, you've got a salesperson, you've got to handle their case and make them feel good and get past all their stuff, and now they can get back on the phone and sell. Now, something I learned from somebody a long time ago, and they said, if you can't change a person's mind, change the person. It may seem evil. My problem is, I felt like everybody's my family. I can't fire my sister. She's doing accounting. I can't fire, all these people. At some point, you've got to be ruthless about this. You can do it politely and all that, but you are the one at the end of the day, if this thing goes wrong, who has to explain it to lawyers, bankers, investors, and you are all alone. It's your deal. They wrote you the check. They want you to answer the questions. They're going to sue you. They're going to name you in the lawsuit. You are going to have to call the lawyer and file to respond to the lawsuit. So you're not running a clinic. You're hiring people who can do the job. They can do their job better than you can. Okay? I can't emphasize that enough. I hope that comes through. It's just, so be very, very careful who you hire. Hire the best you possibly can. That kind of goes without saying. They've got to be, you'll hear it here, like-hearted and like-minded. For example, at Starbucks, they talk about, and read these books, by the way, by these guys who found companies. At Hilton Hotels, there's the book called Be My Guest by Conrad Hilton. Excellent book, excellent story. There's guy wrote Starbucks. Pour your heart into it. What it made the whole thing worth reading to me was, in the middle of the book, he talked about, I've got to find people who, like at Starbucks, they have a passion for coffee and the coffee experience. Can you imagine a CFO who's a tea drinker who works at Starbucks? He's going to be there and saying, well, can't we save money on these beans when we're spending so much money on these stupid beans? We can get cheaper beans somewhere else, can't we? No! Not if they have a passion for coffee and the coffee experience. So that's something key. And when this person, the investor, calls you up in the middle of the night and says, hey, I got an idea for you. If this person's a tea drinker and you're in the coffee business, you're going to think, oh, God, I want to sleep. But no, they'll call you at 2 in the morning, I got this idea. And you think, wow, what is it? Because you're all on the same page. And in the words of an attorney that I worked with me early on, he said, you want to be sure that everybody gets rich the same way. You don't want somebody pulling the business off this way to get rich. That's how they're going to get rich. While you and somebody else are going to get rich this way. Everybody's getting rich the same way, doing the same thing. Just some key ingredients to keep in mind. Let's talk about your product and service. Oftentimes, especially engineering-based entrepreneurs will really, really get into the product and service. I saw this guy's business plan. He showed me 110 pages of blueprints, diagrams, designs, specs, numbers, mathematical equations for this machine that basically crushed and recycled can. I see this thing on the wall. It does it. Anyway, so what people want to know, investors want to know, and you want to know, is how can you lead this market? And you're going to get a class here on niche marketing, or as we say in California, niche marketing. How can you be a leader in that market? You may not be a leader in every market, but how can you be a leader in your market or a certain application of a product you're the best at? So how can I be a leader in the business plan market, so to speak, and make the best business plan and then talk about it and talk to people and help them succeed in their businesses? So, and in market research, this is a two-edged sword. On one hand, you want numbers and statistics of the market available to you where you can be selling product. You want to know how many, if I can sell a $100 product, and you think about businesses, for example, there's 25 million businesses in the country, research I found from the SBA. So 25 million businesses in the U.S., and you could argue whether it's 15 or 35, but nevertheless, that's enough. There's about 15 million businesses in Latin America. There's about 1.3 million Spanish-speaking or Hispanic business owners in the U.S., and I say just for mathematical purposes, let's just say there's 10 million more businesses in the world. That adds up to about 50 million businesses, right? 50 million businesses. Now, if I could sell a $100 business plan, an employee manual, a marketing plan, a public relations package, let's just say I could come up with a complete suite of management tools that are based off my biz plan builder. Could I sell $1,000 worth of software? Sure, provided you like the first one and you go to the next one, So what that is, if I sell $1,000 worth of software and there's 50 million businesses in the world, how big is my opportunity? It starts with a B like Burke. $50 billion. So I can come in with these numbers, and I don't sound like an insane person throwing the number $50 billion down on the thing. I can say, well, if there's 50 million and I sell them, $500 worth, I've got a $25 billion opportunity. Would that be worth, you say, a $5 million investment in my company? I like to think so. But that's the kind of market research I like, is some statistics to show how the math of your business adds up. There's some other market research, like what they did on the Boeing 707, which from my understanding was negligible. Boeing knew. They just knew. They're in the business. And this is what you need to know. And you probably do know this from your own business. You have a gut feel, an intuition. Men have intuition too. I was going to make a bumper sticker that men have intuition too. Men have feelings too. But they knew that the world was going to want jets. They had the technology to build a jet. Did they have market research? Did they hustle a bunch of people into a one-way mirror room and ask them? I don't think so. They knew people wanted. So they built the 707. They spent half the money on the company, half the company's value on building this jet. And of course, then you get some hotshot fighter pilot who's the test pilot for this thing, comes into the Seattle Air Show, flies in low over it, does an aileron roll in a 707. Oh yeah, it's on video, and then and this guy, he thinks it's cool. He comes around and, of course, does it again. In the meantime, the CEO's like got a heart problem, and the VP who knew it was going to happen had some heart pills. Here, eat one of these. He's going to come back, And so they called him in the office and, what the hell were you thinking? He goes, hey, I was selling airplanes. Air Force bought 50 of them a couple weeks later. The minivan, picture the plumber's van years ago. This is an ugly plumber's van. You get a bunch of housewives in a focus group. Okay, ladies, what do you think? You're that guy who gets under the sink, showing a little crack, doing that thing there, He's got this here van. Picture it, cleaned up, bunch of windows, cup holders, kids in the back. What do you think? You can't even envision that. That's like, ew, Nevertheless, minivans are what they are today. There wasn't a whole lot of research. Hilton Hotels. Again, the story of Conrad Hilton. He came to Texas to buy a bank. Bank deal falls apart. Last minute, he walks across the street because he's burned out, wants to lay down. Hotels doing such a business, they can't put him in. You can get the room for 8 hours, then you got to get out. Got to let the next guy in. So you imagine you come here to the hotel, you can only have it for 8 hours, you got to get out because the next person's got to move in. So he's looking at this, and he's got all these people in the lobby, and he's got a bunch of money on him because he's trying to buy a bank across the street, so that didn't go anywhere. Guy behind the counter, apparently was the owner of the hotel, looks at him and says, "You want to buy this? What do you think?" That's Hilton Hotels, true story. The book is fabulous. His big, hairy, audacious goal, by the way, is to own the Waldorf Astoria. He did. Business plan builder. I'm in the shower. I'm seeing business plan that stink. If somebody writes another one, I'm going to choke them. I start the company. Sign up for karate class. One thing you might do as part of your research is, create the brochure of the box and, really make this thing look good and show it to people. And, first of all, would you buy it? I wrote Biz Plan Builder so I could use it. I used Biz Plan Builder several times to make sure that it worked. I learned a lot of stuff, And, so use your product yourself, make it for yourself, and then show other people the actual box, show your engineers that this is what I want this thing to do. This is what we're selling. Let's speed up here a little bit. So think about what you're going to say in terms of all the technical gobbledygook you're going to tell your customer, your investor about your car you're making here. So how many of you care, you go to buy a car, do you care about gear ratios and, axle loading, and I don't even know what this stuff means, but So what you got to do is something more simple. This is what you show them. Give them the key, get in the car, and drive it and see how it goes. That's how you sell this thing. It's got to be ridiculously simple. If they want technical specs, they'll ask for them, and you can provide those later. I'm sure you'll have them. Well, let's talk about marketing quickly. I love this. This is the former vice president of marketing for Coca-Cola, who was it was on his shift that New Coke came out, and don't laugh. At the same time, some people think, the conspiracy theorists think that, it was a good trick to get them, to come up with Coke Classic, come up with this new stuff. But again, this also points out the fallacies that happen in focus groups. The focus group loved it. Guess what? The world didn't. We came out with one of our worst products based on research. Focus group said, you need a product for getting loans. No one bought it. So I've done some of some of the best stuff I've done has come from my intuition. And but the intuition also comes from talking to people, being aware, being awake, being alive, listening to people, and you'll know. Now the other one, which I would call maybe the more feminine approach, would be creating an environment where sales can occur. I've got a website now people go to. I get a 10% gross response rate. 100 people come to my website, 10 people buy something for about $50. That's pretty good. But I have, the concept of creating an environment where sales can occur is very, very important. You go into any major department store, what do you think they're doing? Creating an environment where sales can occur. So what can you do in your marketing to make your sales, make it inviting, where it's the customer's idea to buy your product? All you have to do is say, well, what color is your plastic? Let's look at market analysis. We've dealt with that. Who are the customers? How can you reach these customers? Some of this stuff is fairly straightforward. The one I will get to here is you want to be careful. The bottom bullet point there, watch out for the whiners. There's always going to be whiners. I call it, how come your business plan doesn't have month-by-month financials that go out 5 years? Well, that would be insane, because most people don't believe a business plan that goes beyond 18 months. Ours goes the first year by months, because you need to know that. The second 2 years by quarters, because that's the granularity you need. And then from there on out, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years by year. That makes sense. But to have a 5-year plan by month, which people have asked for, a few people, would then probably drive everybody else who doesn't need that crazy. So you've got to be careful that the silent majority who just loves your product and goes on happily ever after isn't upset because you got 1% of your customers who are whiners who want a certain thing. So you've got to just, I'm not saying don't listen to people, you listen to all of them, but be careful and don't get sucked in by trying to make everybody happy. It's not going to work. Give that whiner your competitor's website. Okay, build a better mousetrap. This is a beautiful thing. Where will be a path to your door? Right. They don't know where you live. So you can lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink, but could you salt the oats? Go sit out in the bar here. What do they give you to eat at bar food? Celery, carrot sticks with water dripping off them while you're drinking? No. So what can you do to possibly make your business more attractive by some compelling reason that someone would need to buy from you? You all come up with your own answers for that, but think about that as a possibility. So your marketing strategy is how are you going to reach these people? There's a key word in a key book I'll recommend, Positioning. There's a book by Al Ries, R-I-E-S, Jack Trout, called Positioning. You need to read this book. You could easily put yourself out of business without this knowledge by doing something very simple and very stupid. You need to know Al Reese and Jack Trout. Reese and Trout positioning. It's been revised a few times. There's another book they have called Focus, which is also, it's along the same lines, but it's really about knowing who you are, and more importantly, knowing who you are not. We turned down an opportunity to buy a software product for writing resumes. I'm standing here, you're entrepreneurs, I want you to buy BizPlan Motors to succeed in your business. If I'd follow that offer up with a resume product, what am I telling you? That my business plan probably sucks, and if you fail, hey, get a resume and get a job. I tell you, I have a nightmare about once a year where I wake up in kind of this cold sweat. I'm in somebody else's meeting. I'm working for them. It's like, ugh, can't handle it. And so it's like Cortez. You heard the story about this. He lands on the beach. He's got like 10,000 angry Indians in front of him. He's got 500 guys. He turns to his second in command and says, "Burn the ships." What? What? Can you imagine being one of the foot soldiers out there? Oh my God, we got like 10,000 of them, 500 of us. Ah, the boats are on fire. You got to either win or die. Well, they won, for better or worse. But an interesting study, So, who are you? What do you do? And what don't you do? And this is important. There's companies. There's the concept of brand extension. I could sell business plan software. I could sell business plan software T-shirts. What has that got to do with anything? So be very careful there about what you take on, what message it sends to your customer. You want to have products and services that you have credibility in. And if a brain surgeon suddenly offers to operate on your foot, would you think twice? I think you should. But it's that kind of a thing. Your brand, you'll hear a ton of stuff about branding. People around here can help you with branding. Branding, I would say if you're starting up, be very, very careful with your brand. You want to have a brand and a look and feel that will last, I'd like to say last forever. Some people change their brands. You'll see brands like Honda created Acura because people just didn't believe that Honda would make a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 car. But, I had an Acura one time. I opened the hood and I see a Honda engine and I think, I'm relieved. It's got a Honda engine that's good, but this car is an Acura. So there's kind of a branding and adding an extra brand. So some thinking about branding, you need to be very conscious about that. Selling strategies, that's, how do you sell this thing? Do you sell it one at a time? Do you speak to groups? Do you sell it via direct mail? Do you sell it with spam? Do you sell it with, how do you do it? So in a lot of those strategies, they all work one way or the other in various mixes. So there isn't like one magic bullet. I'm going to do just PR and that's going to do it for me. Let's talk about fulfillment outsourcing. Outsourcing, I found that when we have people come to us and they would say, well, we can make the disc, we can print your book, we can make the box, somebody else can do this, somebody else can, all these different people doing different stuff. And at the end of the day, when the book didn't fit the box, where the fingers point? At me. So I found somebody now who does the whole enchilada. So I say this for two reasons. One, either when you go to buy an outsourced service like that, go with someone who offers the whole enchilada. If you're offering a service like that, see how you can provide the whole thing and take responsibility for it. This guy I work with says, hey, all the fingers point to me, I take responsibility for it. In this day and age, anybody who will take responsibility for something is golden. Okay. Now FedEx, you can imagine what the guy did there. He was like 26 years old, had some experience in the jet market, got a C+ on his business plan, needed $96 million bucks, but he was providing a whole service, and he pulled it off too. This is my new bullet. I've had this. People have been asking, well, can you outsource technical support? I've outsourced technical support to all over the place, including India and other countries and here and there. I got to tell you, keep your sales calls, your customer service calls, and your technical support calls under your own roof. And I'm not saying this for, political correctness. I'm talking about plain, simple practicality, your own sanity. It might cost you a little more, but you want to be able to walk in the sales room and hear what your people are telling them. You want to walk in, and you want the technical support person to walk in and say, I get in this question all day long. You want to know that. In fact, I think the tech support calls should be routed to the management so you know what the problems are. I'm almost done here. So just to say about this whole thing, what you're doing here, you are building a case. All of this stuff I've been talking about up until now, you're building a case for the financials. The financial assumptions go in, and people see this, and because that's what the investors are going to negotiate with you all. I don't think you're going to sell 1,000 of those. There isn't a big enough world of people to buy 1,000 of those. But you've already established there's 50 million businesses in the world that could buy this. The rest is arithmetic. If I could sell them $100, if I can approach a certain percentage of that marketplace, and I'll just say this, don't ever come in and use the word, if we get 1% of the market. No. My business plan even says, if we approach 1% of the market over 5 years, this is what this thing can do. Okay? So the other thing about using the funds is you want to complete a project phase. Like, for example, you're raising money for a restaurant. I need the money to refurbish the restaurant, put in all this stuff, buy food and hire people for 6 months and promote this thing and run it. So it's like, then you might want about a bunch of money later on, but you need to have enough money to get something started. I need enough money to build a prototype, get my paperwork in order, and go out. If I just have my prototype built and some paperwork, I can at least go out and sell a few people, and then I can take some orders, and then you can raise some money for the next bunch. Does this make sense? So you want to have some kind of milestone that the financing is going to pay for, or project phase. However much money are you going to make the first year, and most of when are you going to make a profit? This is key because it goes back to, and I'll get into that in a moment, your evaluation model. So the weighted average is, what I said is the best and worst case analysis. So the worst case is, we're going to do 30% of what we said we're going to do. We plan to do 50% of what we said we're going to do. And, the best case, there's a 20% probability of doing the best case. If you add them up, you can see here that in one case, if you've got, business is going to be worth $10 million, worst case scenario, $20 million planned case, $50 million best case. If you do, I don't have that blue screen like the movies, weather guy has. 30% probability of being $10 million means you're worth $3 million. If you have a 50% probability of being worth $20 million, that's 10. Anyway, you got to add these up, and that's your weighted average value based on what you put in that business valuation model. So you've got your best and worst case scenario in there. Back to this model. You run the best case in there, worst case in here, planned case in here, do the weighted average on it, and that's how you come up with a reasonable number. Now you sound like an intelligent business person explaining and answering what the value of your company is. So at the end of the day, use this thing to structure your thinking, to get it all in, cover all of your bases. The summary is like your advertisement. That first paragraph explains who you are and gets you past the gatekeepers, gets you in the door and gets somebody interested. You need to show how you're going to make money. There's several ways possible. The more, the better. You want to get the right people. You're not running a clinic, and be careful there. And it's got to be realistic. Would you buy this thing? And I really recommend it. When you sit around listening to each other here, think about seriously investing in somebody else's business, all the way to the point of actually giving them $1,000 for shares in their company. Because by doing so, you will be on the other side of the desk, and you will have a direct personal, emotional, intellectual, mental, physical, spiritual experience of being an investor in somebody's company, and you'll understand why these questions are there. You'll understand why investors are grilling you and want your firstborn when they're looking at investing in your company. Because look how you are with somebody else's business. And so with the investor, you say, here's what we can do with your money. My brains, your money, your talent, whatever. Here's what we can build, and here's how great it's going to be. And back to investing in somebody else's project. And at the end of the day, when will the money come in? Well, I love these Zen things like infinite patience produces immediate results. And so my offer, of course, is Biz Plan Builder and my book Business Black Belt for $99. And you can get it on the web. The web address is www.jian.com. In fact, there is a copy of Biz Plan Builder. Would you bring that here really quick, please? I must end this. I'll show you the book. And it comes with a picture of me on the front. And the back is my book with me in black and white on the back. God, that's over the top. Anyway, CD comes with this, and we have updates on the web. So it's Biz Plan Builder. It is the best business plan out there. Use it myself. I don't think anybody with a competitor product has actually raised money for themselves with their own product, which is bizarre to me. But anyway, thank you very much.